Tributes are pouring in for legendary singer-songwriter Kris Kristofferson, who died yesterday at 88.
In the realm of country music, Willie Nelson and Kris Kristofferson are two of the most prominent figures in the history of the genre. These two titans have left an indelible mark on the industry and have won the hearts of millions of fans. They have achieved this by releasing hit songs over the course of several decades and maintaining a friendship that has endured the test of time. Nelson, however, has come forward with a shocking revelation about Kris, which has left fans in a state of shock. This revelation comes after Kris's passing. Could you please tell me about the mysteries that lie beneath the smiles of this icon? Are they aiming to establish a better legacy for him or to destroy it? We invite you to join us as we investigate these shocking revelations and the implications they have for the legacy of Kris Kristofferson. An unexpected and profoundly personal revelation has been made by Nelson regarding Kris's history. This revelation has revealed a concealed truth that has been buried beneath the surface for a number of years. Prior to delving further into that topic, however, it is necessary for us to gain an understanding of the relationship that exists between Kris Kristofferson and Willie Nelson between them. A strong and enduring connection exists between Kris Kristofferson and Willie Nelson, which is founded on mutual respect, collaboration, and a shared enthusiasm for music shared by both of them. They rose to prominence as two of the most influential figures in country music during the end of the 1960s and the beginning of the 1970s as part of the outlaw country movement, which was a movement that opposed the traditional Nashville sound. The fact that they worked together on projects, particularly as members of the supergroup The Highwaymen with Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings, helped strengthen their connection. This was in addition to the fact that they had achieved success in their individual lives. Both Kris Kristofferson, who is known for his poetic and reflective songwriting, and Nelson, who is admired for his distinctive voice and versatility, contributed to each other's creative development simultaneously. Initially, they became close because of their ability to write songs, and they shared a mutual admiration for each other's capacity to produce music that is emotional and authentic. When his songs were recorded by musicians such as Johnny Cash and Janis Joplin, Kris Kristofferson was able to achieve success. On the other hand, Nelson's popular songs, such as Crazy, became iconic in the country music genre. Due to the fact that they were friends and could work together, they worked together on a number of different projects. During the time of the Highwaymen, their friendship and musical connection were manifested in songs that became popular, such as Highwaymen. They shared more than just a musical connection. They shared a common philosophy and way of life, and they both placed a higher value on personal integrity, creativity, and independence than they did on successful business ventures. In spite of the ups and downs that have occurred in their respective careers, Kristofferson and Nelson have managed to keep their friendship strong. They have a connection that demonstrates their admiration for each other's abilities, as well as their shared experience with the triumphs and difficulties that are associated with the music industry. By working together, they have achieved legendary status, not only as individual musicians, but also as contributors to a larger movement that ultimately resulted in the transformation of the country music genre. Who exactly is this Kris Kristofferson that everyone seems to be talking about nowadays? I was curious about his childhood. Well, let's find out. The year 1970 marked the release of Kristofferson's first studio album, which featured a combination of previously recorded songs and new songs that had not been released before. In spite of the fact that it was initially unsuccessful, the album was reissued in 1971 under the title Me and Bobby McGee, and it was ultimately met with a great deal of acclaim. In the early 1970s, well-known singers like Ray Price, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Waylon Jennings, Bobby Bare, Johnny Cash, and Sam Smith continued to be popular due to their successful performances of his songs. This was due to the fact that his compositions continued to be in high demand. In 1970, Kris Kristofferson's songs For the Good Times and Sunday Morning Coming Down received praise from the Academy of Country Music and the Country Music Association, which helped to solidify his reputation as a talented songwriter among the country music community. During the same year, this individual was honored with Song of the Year honors from both the Academy of Country Music and the Country Music Association for a variety of songs. Janis Joplin used the song Me and Bobby McGee that she had recorded for her album Pearl in 1971, and it dominated the charts for a number of weeks. Several artists were able to achieve success with their renditions of the song after its popularity skyrocketed. Kenny Rogers, a well-known figure in the world of country music, recorded a number of songs by Kris Kristofferson, including Me and Bobby McGee, in 1969. These songs were included on the first edition of the album Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town, which experienced a great deal of commercial success. These albums, which highlight the enduring allure of Kristofferson's music, further strengthened Kristofferson's reputation as a skilled songwriter. Love in Her Was Easier Than Anything I'll Ever Do Again, which Kristofferson released in 1971, was the song that brought him to fame. The Silver-Tongued Devil and I was an instant hit, and it was the song that brought him to fame. His first album, Cisco Pike, was released in the same year that his third album, Borderlord, was released. But sales were slow at first. With his song Help Me Make It Through the Night, Kris Kristofferson won the Grammy Award for Country Song of the Year. This was a huge accomplishment for him. In 1972, his album Jesus Was a Capricorn was plagued by slow sales, but on November 8, 1973, his album Why Me became a surprise hit, which boosted album sales to over 1 million copies and earned him a gold disc from the Rip-Off Recording Industry Association. In 1972, Kris Kristofferson and Rita Coolidge gave a captivating performance of the song Help Me Make It Through the Night on the BBC program The Old Grey Whistle Test. Their chemistry was palpable throughout the performance. On his album titled I'm Still in Love with You, which was released in that year, the well-known soul vocalist Al Green performed a rendition of For Good Times that was filled with emotion. Fans of Kris Kristofferson were blown away by the emotional music he created. Afterwards, all of a sudden, he made the transition into acting, and he managed to continue to captivate audiences regardless. The professional life of Kris Kristofferson. The artistic intuition that Kristofferson possessed led him to the West, where he became aware of the film industry and began his journey as an unconventional actor. He then shifted his focus to acting, appearing in a number of films, including Cisco Pike alongside Gene Hackman, Bloom in Love, which was directed by Paul Mazursky, and Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, which he co-starred in with Sam Peckinpah. These collaborations ultimately resulted in the production of Bring Me the Head, which was directed by Alfredo Garcia, and Convoy, which was a collaboration between the two actors. Additionally, he shared the screen with Burt Reynolds in the film Semi-Tough, and contributed to the film Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which was directed by Martin Scorsese, before starring in A Star is Born alongside Barbra Streisand and winning the Golden Globe Award for Best Actor. Kris Kristofferson had roles in the films Vigilante Force and The Sailor. It was during this time that he found himself falling out of favor with the sea. Kristofferson turned down significant roles in films such as William Friedkin's Sorcerer and the war romance Hanover Street when he was at the pinnacle of his career in the film industry. The failure of Kris Kristofferson's ninth album, titled Shake Hands with the Devil, to achieve commercial success was a setback for his solo music career. This was despite the fact that he had previously collaborated with Barbra Streisand. Similarly, his subsequent attempt at television, the two-part movie Freedom Road, which he produced in 1979, was also unsuccessful. Around the year 1980, Kris Kristofferson made a remarkable comeback by playing the role of the legendary Sheriff James Averill in the epic film Heaven's Gate, which was directed by Michael Cimino. In the beginning, the movie was not successful at the box office, but it eventually received a lot of positive feedback from critics. Following his performance alongside Jane Fonda in the film Rollover, which was released in 1981, Kris Kristofferson's acting career began to flourish. Additionally, he appeared in the film The Last Days of Frank and Jesse James, which was released in 1986. In this film, he featured alongside Johnny Cash and displayed his charisma. In addition, he was considered for a role in the 1985 film Trouble in Mind, which also starred Keith Carradine and Laurie Singer. In 1987, he made his debut on television in the United States, and he went on to star in Millennium and Fire Down Below, the latter of which starred Steven Seagal in the highly acclaimed film Lone Star, which was directed by John Sayles and released in 1996, Kris Kristofferson gave an outstanding performance as Sheriff Charlie Wade, a corrupt lawman. As a result of this performance, the film was nominated for an Academy Award in the category of Best Screenplay. During the year 1998, Kris Kristofferson collaborated with Wesley Snipes to play the role of Abraham Whistler, a knowledgeable mentor in the film Blade. Subsequently, he showcased his dancing abilities in the film Dance With Me alongside Vanessa Williams and Cheyenne. The gritty revenge film Payback, which was released in 1999, featured him as a collaborator alongside Mel Gibson. In 2001, he made his debut in the science fiction genre by playing a leading role in the film Planet of the Apes with Sudden Excitement, which was directed by Tim Burton. In Blade Trinity, he reprised his role as Abraham Whistler, which he had previously played in Blade 2, which was released in 2002. Disappearances, a film that was released in 2006, featured him in a role alongside Genevieve Bujold. Following his role in the 2011 film Dolphin Tale, he went on to co-star with Dolly Parton in the musical drama Joyful Noise, which was released in 2012. Both The Motel Life and Angels Sing, in which he co-starred alongside Willie Nelson and Lyle Lovett, were released in 2013, allowing him to demonstrate his acting skills. While navigating the highs and lows of fame, Kris Kristofferson faced a turbulent romantic life that was marked by intense connections and challenging separations. Despite this, he remained driven in his pursuit of love. Kris Kristofferson's romantic life was a tumultuous journey filled with captivating women of his time, which resulted in both passion and heartbreak. His life was filled with both. In 1960, immediately following his graduation from Oxford University, Kris Kristofferson tied the knot with Frances Beer, the woman he had loved since high school. While Kristofferson was being interviewed by Rolling Stone in 1974, he reflected on the relationship and stated, "We thought we could solve each other's problems. My finished book was rejected. We got married. She became pregnant, and I was left to provide for us financially on my own. All of these things happened simultaneously. Kristofferson's sense of responsibility increased in tandem with the expansion of his family members. Their daughter Tracy was born in 1962, and then 6 years later, their son Chris Jr. was born. Both of their children were born in the same year. Kristofferson made the courageous decision to enlist in the Army in 1965 and was able to secure a teaching position at West Point. He did this so that he could provide for his family. Prior to beginning his work, he made a significant trip to Nashville in order to visit A. The thriving music scene in the city sparked his enthusiasm for his long-term goal of becoming an accomplished songwriter, which was a dream that had not yet been realized. The fact that this visit would mark the beginning of an incredible adventure that was about to take place was completely unknown to Kris Kristofferson. As a result of his newly discovered determination, Kris Kristofferson moved his family to Nashville and immediately began working as a caretaker at Columbia Records in order to provide for them financially. Because he was so passionate about music, he made this courageous choice, which required him to make significant sacrifices, such as accepting a significant reduction in his salary. It was only natural for Beer to be concerned about their financial situation, especially after the birth of their son, Chris Jr., who had health problems that resulted in $10,000 in medical bills. Their relationship became increasingly tense, which ultimately led to their separation in the year 1969. In the late 1960s, when Kris Kristofferson was beginning to establish himself as a songwriter in Nashville, he had a brief relationship with the legendary singer-songwriter Janis Joplin. The tragic death of Joplin in October 1970, when she was 27 years old, brought an end to their passionate as well as brief romantic relationship. It was in the spring of 1970 when Kristofferson and Joplin first became acquainted with one another through their shared friend, Bobby Newirth. In the end, Kristofferson decided to stay with Joplin at her home in Larkspur for a couple of weeks, despite the fact that Newirth had suggested that they travel to California together. It was during this time that a romantic relationship was initiated. Joplin heard Kristofferson's suggestion that she should record the song Me and Bobby McGee, which was a song that she cherished. In the moments leading up to her passing, Joplin recorded the song for her album titled Pearl. It wasn't until the producer played the song for Kristofferson the day after Joplin's passing that he learnt that she had recorded the song. After listening to her emotionally charged performance, Kristofferson found it extremely challenging to cope with the situation, which ultimately led to him breaking down. He has gone on to express his admiration for Joplin's abilities and her enthusiasm, expressing his admiration for the enthusiasm, emotion, and spirit that she poured into everything that she did. He referred to her as a magnificent natural force and acknowledged the contribution that she had made to the success of the song. Me and Bobby McGee, which was released shortly after Joplin's death, was the only single that reached #1 on the charts. Kris Kristofferson met the singer Rita Coolidge in the early 1970s, and he fell in love with her. This occurred as Kristofferson continued to achieve success. Regardless of whether or not they were performing on stage, their connection was one of harmony and coordination. According to Coolidge's statement from 2016, she believed that she had experienced love at first sight when she first met them. They did not stop talking to one another while they were in flight to Memphis. In 1973, they officially became husband and wife, and the following year, they became parents to a daughter named Casey. Not only did the album Full Moon receive positive reviews, but it also earned multiple nominations for Grammy Awards. In the year 1979, Kris Kristofferson embarked on a musical journey that took him to Havana, Cuba. While there, he participated in the renowned Havana Jam Festival alongside other prominent musicians. The performance that Kristofferson gave at Havana Jam, 79 inches from March 2nd to March 4th, along with Coolidge, Stephen Stills, and a number of Cuban and American artists, left an impression that will not soon be forgotten. On the 18th of November in the same year, Kristofferson and Coolidge performed on The Muppet Show, where they displayed their distinctive combination of rock and country music techniques. Both Kris Kristofferson and Coolidge gave performances that were captivating and unforgettable. Kristofferson sang "Help Me Make It Through the Night" with Miss Piggy, and Coolidge sang "We're All Alone" with a group of forest creatures accompanying her. Following that, the two individuals collaborated with the Muppet Monsters to perform an upbeat rendition of "A Song I Want to Perform," which undoubtedly left an indelible mark on the audience that was watching the news broadcast. In spite of the fact that both of them had achieved great success in their careers, the couple's marriage became increasingly tumultuous due to disagreements regarding their artwork and problems with substances. It had been 7 years since they had been married when they made the decision to end their marriage in 1980. Despite the fact that they are no longer together, Coolidge continues to hold Kristofferson in high regard. She made a heartfelt tribute to People magazine, stating that their connection is unbreakable, according to her statement. Coolidge asserted that their connection is beyond comprehension, citing the fact that it is founded on a singular sense of humor and comprehension that goes beyond conventional understanding. During an interview with the Irish Times, Coolidge clarified that she had never intended to demonize Kris Kristofferson. She also mentioned that she had touched on the difficulties that they had experienced in their marriage in her book, Delta Lady. Rather than that, she made an effort to talk about her experiences without harboring any negative emotions or resentment whatsoever. Not wasting any time, Kristofferson moved forward. In 1983, he tied the knot with attorney Lisa Myers, and ever since then, their marriage has been the most consistent and long-lasting relationship he has ever had. There are a total of 5 children that they have, and their names are Jesse, Jody, Johnny, Kelly, and Blake. All of their children were born between the years 1984 and 1994. Between their homes in Malibu, California, and Maui, Hawaii, the family divides their time between the two locations. It is well known that Myers was instrumental in helping Kris Kristofferson transform his life and career after he had been struggling with depression and alcoholism for a number of years. Throughout his career, she has never left his side, working with him on songs and accompanying him on his stage performances. Nearly 40 years have passed since the commencement of Kristofferson's most successful and longest-lasting marriage. The challenge that Kristofferson faced, on the other hand, was significantly more challenging. To ensure his survival, he had to engage in a struggle against an unknown illness. Illness and death are both possibilities. Throughout the course of his long and illustrious career, the well-known musician and actor Kris Kristofferson has been confronted with a great number of significant health challenges. The older he got older, the more obvious his health problems became. He received a number of incorrect diagnoses, and it took a long time to figure out what caused his incapacitating symptoms. Beginning in the latter part of the 2000s, Kris Kristofferson began to struggle with memory loss and cognitive issues. Because of these changes, his medical team came to the conclusion that he was suffering from Alzheimer's disease in the year 2013. In light of the fact that Alzheimer's disease is a progressive neurological disorder that irreversibly impairs memory and cognitive abilities, Kristofferson and his family were taken aback by the diagnosis. Over the course of many years, Kris Kristofferson was treated for a condition that was suspected to be Alzheimer's disease. He was given a variety of medications and therapies in order to alleviate his symptoms. On the other hand, his condition did not significantly improve, which led his wife, Lisa Myers, to speculate that there might be another factor contributing to his health problems. After years of uncertainty, Myers made the decision in 2016 to seek the opinion of a second physician regarding Kristofferson's ailments. A comprehensive evaluation of Kristofferson's symptoms was carried out by the newly appointed physician, who also suggested a number of tests, one of which was for Lyme disease. It came as a surprise to Kristofferson and his family when they learned that the test results indicated Lyme disease rather than Alzheimer's disease, which was what they had initially believed that the condition was. Kristofferson was thought to have contracted Lyme disease between 14 and 30 years earlier, most likely during the filming of Disappearances in the Vermont woods in 2006. Myers was of the opinion that this occurred. During an interview with Lyme Times, Myers mentioned that in hindsight, the diagnosis of fibromyalgia ought to have resulted in the testing for Lyme disease. Due to the fact that he continues to experience muscle spasms, which are a symptom that is typically associated with Lyme disease, it is possible that he has been infected with the illness for a period of time that ranges from 14 to 30 years. Immediately after receiving his diagnosis, he was subjected to a number of treatments including hyperbaric oxygen therapy, HBOT, and transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, which were directed towards the frontal lobe of his brain. Furthermore, in addition to taking doxycycline, he was given antibiotic injections, which were administered to his muscles. According to Closer Weekly, his friend and fellow songwriter Chris Gantry also expressed his support for the singer by comparing his recovery to the resurrection of Lazarus and describing it as miraculous by comparing it to the singer's recovery. It has become increasingly apparent over the course of the past 6 years that once medical professionals determined that Alzheimer's disease was not the cause of his health, there was a discernible shift in his condition. Memory loss and cognitive issues that had been present for almost a decade began to improve for Kris Kristofferson, which granted him the opportunity to regain a significant portion of the mental acuity and vitality that he had previously possessed. Kris is as mentally sharp as he was 20 years ago, according to a close friend who shared this information with Closer in 2016. Additionally, his wife Lisa, along with their 8 children, now sees a different side of Kris. Myers emphasized that it is a remarkable achievement in modern medicine, and he mentioned that he had been prescribed a number of substances for conditions that he did not have, each of which had its own set of adverse effects. Myers noticed a significant improvement in his health after receiving a determination that he was suffering from Lyme disease and after receiving the appropriate treatment from medical professionals. As a result of the fact that he sometimes gives the impression of being in perfect health, his health problems are sometimes overlooked, he mentioned. In spite of the fact that he was getting closer and closer to the end of his life, Kris Kristofferson experienced a renewed sense of calm and contemplation as his health began to improve and the burden of the unknown began to lift. In the month of January 2021, Kris Kristofferson made the decision to take a break from his career in the film and music industries. One of Kristofferson's closest friends disclosed that the musician was no longer prepared to meet the requirements of touring and was instead concentrating on making his family's life easier by converting his assets into cash income. After spending years traveling and performing, the legendary singer-songwriter and actor was finally beginning to feel the effects of his years of hard work. As Kris Kristofferson got closer to his 87th birthday, he started talking about the realities of getting older in a more open and honest manner. The time had finally come for Kris Kristofferson to discuss some of the difficulties he encountered in his later years, after he had been in the public eye for a considerable amount of time. Concerned about the possibility of health problems and the effects of aging, he made preparations to ensure the well-being of his family in the years to come. It was clear that he was dedicated to reducing the burden of financial responsibilities that his family required of him, as evidenced by his financial planning, which ensured that they would continue to be supported even in his absence. In a tragic turn of events, Kris Kristofferson passed away on September 28, 2024, at the age of 88, at his home in Maui. When Kris Kristofferson considered the legacy he had left behind, he expressed his heartfelt gratitude for the experiences he had lived and the songs he had written. It was clear to him that his journey would require him to be determined, decisive, and unwaveringly committed to his work. He maintained his humility throughout the process. He demonstrated that art can transcend time and have a profound connection with the human experience through the music that he created, which had a profound impact on millions of people and inspired generations. Despite the fact that Kris Kristofferson did not place a high priority on wealth or fame as his primary motivations, he was able to achieve significant financial success through his endeavors in the fields of music and acting. His estimated net worth was approximately $50 million, which is evidence that his work has achieved long-term success and is appealing to a wide audience. In spite of his wealth, Kris Kristofferson found that the emotional and spiritual fulfillment he gained from the realization that his songs had a significant impact on other people was more valuable to him than his wealth. In his opinion, success was not determined by attaining wealth or gaining recognition. Rather, it was determined by the connection and affection that he had developed with his followers. The knowledge that his songs would continue to be meaningful to audiences and that they would keep his voice and artistic vision alive even after he had passed away was a source of comfort for Kris Kristofferson, despite the fact that he had temporarily stopped performing. Kris Kristofferson continued to be a significant figure in the landscape of the music industry even after he passed away in a peaceful manner. Following the passing of the deceased, his close friend Willie Nelson disclosed some shocking information. How could this possibly be? The startling information that Willie Nelson has revealed about Kris Kristofferson. A heartfelt admission about Kris Kristofferson was unexpectedly shared by Willie Nelson during an interview. Nelson declared that Kris Kristofferson is one of the greatest songwriters in the history of the world. Nelson emphasized the significant impact that Kris Kristofferson has had on country music, while he was thinking about other songwriting legends such as Merle Haggard and Hank Williams. Not only did Nelson include Billy Joe Shaver, but he also included Kris Kristofferson in a prestigious category of musicians who had an impact on the genre, due to the fact that they have been friends for a long time and have both been involved in the music industry. Nelson has a great deal of respect for Kris Kristofferson. Both musicians are highly regarded in the industry for their exceptional ability to convey genuine emotions through their music, which distinguishes them from other artists in the field. The legendary musician Nelson, who is known for creating timeless classics such as Crazy, which was initially titled Stupid, acknowledged the significant contributions made by Kris Kristofferson. During the course of the conversation, Nelson, who is known for his modesty regarding his accomplishments, mentioned that despite the fact that songs like Crazy and Funny How Time Slips Away are regarded as classics, the music of artists like Kris Kristofferson continues to serve as a source of inspiration for him and other people. The mutual respect that these two legends have for one another is illustrative of the profound connections that have been forged over the course of many years of making music that continues to touch generations. You should click the next video that appears on your screen, as well as like and subscribe to this video if you found it entertaining.